Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast where every 2 weeks, seriously, we come together to watch an anime, and then, we watch it separately. Then we discuss it together in front of you. And then you get to tell us and everyone else why we're wrong, why we're right, what you liked, what you didn't like. We're just starting the discussion. This is a book club, and you guys are the most important members. We're just the weird bearded faces of it. And today we're discussing the Elusive Samurai. And to do so, I need the help of my co-host. First off, with his hot take, it's the ticket to ride to my wingspan. It's Jeremy.
They should make a game about food, nutritional information as the characters. That would be cool.
That's a repeat. I'm sure that's a repeat. I have heard you say that before.
Nope. That's my original hot take.
Are you messing with me right now? You definitely said that one before.
I do not have a hot take.
All right. We also have the Phase 10 to my Uno. Jason with his hot take.
We need more original anime because I think this is not true of all cases, but some anime based off of manga or short or graphic novels,
Manga, light novels.
That's what I'm thinking of. Could be overrated, and I think a lot of times are.
Are you guys both doing bits?
What are you talking about?
I said that like 6 months ago.
You did not.
Maybe longer. When we watched like Vivi, I was like, hey, original anime. Like, this is so important. We need to quit doing adaptations. We need to make it for anime. Okay.
You remember that?
My unique,
I remember all my opinions forever.
My unique take on this is that I think they're overrated because I think the manga readers are more invested in it. Yeah. Therefore, original.
Well, I want to see the season 2
You're welcome.
of Grimgar. Speaking of like original, is that original? Grimgar?
I don't know. What are you trying to say? I
Troy, what's your hot
honestly
take?
am worried you guys colluded and decided to screw with me
Conspiracy.
before the call. And my hot take, I'm Troy, is hot takes are overrated. No,
That was mine a long time ago.
Speaking of trolling,
something
I feel like we're gonna have to come up with a new bit.
Krillin, yeah. Or Suicide Squad, not good.
See, as long as we
Yes.
reference it's important we keep that episode.
Yes.
Suicide Squad, Kisniver, almost the same level.
Automata, way up here. But you guys will never know.
Well, they're gonna know because we said we were gonna watch it and then we didn't watch it according to them.
Well, yeah.
An episode got lost. We're not gonna point fingers. We're not gonna do any blame. We're just gonna let it slide by. We're gonna find whoever did this, give them a spanking on their bare bottom, and then just move along.
Things happened. I blame archive.org.
Yeah, there was issues.
I blame procrastination.
Maybe.
All right, that's the whole point of this bit of the hot takes is to give people a taste of our taste. So they're like, oh, I like what Jason said. His review is probably gonna more skew towards what I like, and we are flopping that so badly.
They're just
I gave
generally
a real hot take. I disagree.
They're just learning that we're generally bitter and obnoxious.
All right,
Definitely bitter.
Jeremy grades things on a technical level. Jason judges things on a artistic level, and I judge things on an emotional level.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
Okay, I just made that up.
Story structure more, I think, for me.
I have no idea what you judge things based on. We've been doing this for 204 episodes. I have no idea.
Jason just closes his eyes and throws a dart.
You're the wild card on the
Right.
team.
Well, it's like we watched Dandy. You both were just, sides busting, and I'm just sitting here deadpan going, I hate you both.
That's the one where we spun you around after you close your eyes and then you threw the dart.
Wicca. All right. The callbacks. Elusive Samurai. That's what we're here to talk about. Let's do our non-spoiler reviews to give you guys a general impression of what we saw. If you're still deciding if you're going to watch it, this was my pick, but I don't like to go first. Jason?
The animation for the majority of the anime, even in some of the quiet parts, is gorgeous. It's a beautiful anime to watch. Like, the studio did a really good job.
Horseback.
No.
Horseback.
I know
Not the CG parts.
CGI was bad, but the voice actors and actresses for the dub did a great job. I felt the emotion, and the music was okay. But if I had to pick one word to describe this anime, it'd be obnoxious. I had a hard time hitting play on the next button because I was so confused. I was like, what am I watching? Like, there's these huge tonal shifts between seriousness and silly, but it involves it's too contrasty, and I had a hard time not just investing in any of the characters, but caring what happened, because it felt like even though there were definite serious consequences for some of these characters, it felt like it had no weight. Like, they just took the rug out from under you with the in-between scenes of combat. And so I wouldn't recommend this anime. It was a hard watch.
Yeah. I'm right there with you, especially like on the tonal shifts back and forth between really gory. Like, I mean, it even gives you hey, this is a 16 plus episode on Crunchyroll. And I'm like, but the kids were being so funny and goofy and silly just a minute ago. What do you mean? It really swings hard in those two directions. And I think there's something really interesting about just how, well, I don't want to get into the intro yet, but I'm really curious. There's a lot of odd flags that it sends up that there's something really interesting going on here, but it's only doling out a few breadcrumbs here and there. So for that reason, I'm intrigued. I'm curious about what's going on behind the scenes, but I'm also a little bit trying to find a better word for it, but a little bit grossed out, just because the contradiction of the cute kids and then like people being beheaded and stuff, and having like multiple heads on a sword, and people are always laughing and like Machiavellian hypervillains. It's so hard to see. But there was something else. It keeps popping in and out of my head. Oh yeah, Super Kids. That's another thing I have an issue with. The Super Kids, just in general. Like, the anime wants to be so real in some ways, and yet in others it wants to be. It's almost arbitrary in when it takes itself seriously and when it goes into the fantasy zone. And yeah, I have a lot of trouble when these little 8 and 9-year-old kids are going up against trained samurai and are like, oh yeah, I deflected his sword, and oh, I snuck in this blow, especially in duels. And yeah, so technical complaints, but I don't know. It's okay, not good.
the writer of this wrote Assassination Classroom, and that's one of my favorite animes, at least in the top 50. Really, but I really like Assassination Classroom, and that does a great job of having like some dark threads weave through its storyline, while also being light and silly about a tentacle monster teaching a classroom of children how to kill him to show them real world values and real world education. And it was great. And so when I found out he wrote this, and I'd seen some of the Sakuga clips from the show, I was like, oh, that looks cool. Something original, something, not a sequel, not a season 2, just something fresh. And I walked away super disappointed. And because of my love of Assassination Classroom, I kept like, no, I'm just not getting it. I don't think I'm getting it. And that feeling didn't ever went away. The whole show, I feel like I'm watching someone's inside joke, and I'm not getting it. And so I did a Google search because I was having this suspicion that this is real, and it is kind of. These are real people in history, but quick clarification. I know nothing about Japanese history. This is what I could put together after like 10 minutes on Wikipedia. Okay, so I'm probably getting this wrong, but my impression is if we made a cartoon about Paul Revere as a child doing competitive writing and how he had to use his competitive writing to rise through the ranks and become the greatest writer of all time, on horseback and stuff. And then we took that cartoon and we showed it to a bunch of Japanese people because, Paul Revere is a name known in American history, but no one knows a lot about him. So you could play a lot with his background. Obviously, he's historical scholars, but like the average person just knows what Paul Revere did that one time. Mm-hmm. But then you take that to Japan, and I'll bet Paul Revere probably doesn't translate. And they're like, okay, there's a story about a guy who rides horses well. Why is that a thing? And it's like, no, trust me. This is a great. In America, we're loving this. This really just works well. That's my impression of this series. It's taking a historical moment in time, putting this silly twist on it by making the guy a child, and then doing this weird, funny story with it, and it doesn't work for me at all. The humor didn't work. The action's kind of good. I'll get into more of the real world history in the actual podcast, but it doesn't work, I don't think, especially for an American audience. Maybe it works better for a Japanese audience.
And Paul Revere's like, blowing the heads off of, British. Like,
yes.
I mean, as a child. So
yes,
right. And King George is actually possessed by a demon with wings. Right. Something like that. Yeah. I mean, to us, like, I could see that working on an American audience. Like, there's probably something there. So maybe this works. I just, like I said, it doesn't work for me. All right. Thoughts on the OP and the ED?
Music was okay. And also the animation was good. I have a feeling my opinion's I'm trying not to let it be skewed by the anime itself, because I ended up skipping it a lot because I was just trying to get through anime. But the ED is a perfect example of, okay, I'm not going to get into it too much. Mm-hmm. ED is a perfect example of the bad writing decisions of these weird tonal shifts, I guess is the best way to put it. But quality-wise, they were all good. Yeah.
When you say that, are you talking about how everything suddenly turns like modern in the ED?
Not just modern, but you've got the demon-possessed dude, like
just
now
dancing
he's
with
a
everybody
DJ.
else being a DJ, and yeah.
It's like, oh, what are we doing?
Yeah, it's not even fully modern. It's like 1980s modern, because like their uniforms are like 80s Japanese uniforms and turntables rather than like putting music on an iPod or something.
Just felt like an ED for a different anime.
See, this is the thing that's intriguing me is there's little things in the show, mainly surrounding one character in particular, that makes me think it's almost like an educational show, even though it's obviously not, but like it's riffing on that idea.
Right?
And yeah,
that's what I'm talking about. Like, I feel like there's a link here that I'm not connecting to that the show has.
Well, Magical School Bus, right? And I mean, it's a weird thing to pull out, but they're in a school bus in the ED. They're in school clothes. Right. It's a bunch of kids going to. It almost seems like the kids are like reading about these characters and imagining themselves in their roles, and this is the skewed perspective of what they imagine it to be. But that's just ED stuff and some potential things that might be hinted at. So I don't know. That's the part where I'm intrigued. Like, there's a lot of weird stuff going on, but the ED like creates a really weird, like, how do I justify this? How do I explain why they made this decision?
The other thing that the ED made me think is like, and this is I really despise this. It feels like this entire anime was a prologue to the real story, and because nothing really happens. Sorry, spoiler alert. But like, I don't want to have to burn through 12 episodes to get to the good part. Well, if that's the case here. I don't know if that is the case here. It feels like it's trending that direction.
It very much feels like a first season, like introduce the baddie, but hey, this is going to be a very long anime to get to the conclusion, the real conclusion. And thank you. Yeah, in season 1, maybe you don't have the final culmination of the whole story. The OP I thought was great. Great introduction to the characters. Art was beautiful. Music was nice.
I agree.
Yeah, it was good.
I think I like the OP. I can't remember it. Someone got sick and we had to skip a week. And I went to watch it. I couldn't find it on YouTube real quick. I found the ED again.
Not pointing finger.
Not pointing any fingers.
No.
It wasn't me.
If it's not obvious.
It's fine. I had planned just to rewatch it and refresh my memory, and I couldn't. So I think I remember liking it. I rewatched the ED. I do remember being like, it's such a weird choice to be like 1980s modern all of a sudden. But the music was good. So I mostly agree with what you guys said. All right. Next up, before we go to spoiler section, the next anime we're going to be watching is one of Jason's picks. And this time, we're actually going to publish the podcast. God, hopefully. I can't believe how controversial we got last time. I just had to cut it.
I know.
Oh, that's right. That was my pick.
One of those rare
now I'm
ones
upset.
We come to blows.
Actually, I think we got more information about external media than we did the actual season of that anime.
Yeah,
you're not wrong.
I was gonna say at least we lost Jason spoiling everything, but that was actually last week's episode, and we have that one.
Right. Yeah.
So,
when
she
got outside the tower and then she never mind.
Anyway, next anime, The Witch and the Beast, the 12-episode anime about a lady who's cursed and she's gonna kill every witch it takes to save herself. And it's dark and rated R.
Feels noirish.
Don't watch with your children.
Or if you're a child, don't watch it. Skip this one.
Gives me I've seen very little about it, but so I'm gonna say Witchblade vibes, but I bet you I'm wrong.
But just because it has witch in the title and it's dark.
No, okay, apparently I'm the only one who watched that stupid show Witchblade.
I haven't seen it.
Like a woman in like the armor grows all over. She's almost like a magical girl, but it was a very dark magical girl, and like she ripped demons in half.
Except it's very titillating.
Yeah. It was.
Ladyver.
Yeah, wasn't she a single mom or something like that?
Yeah, and a detective, and I think there was an anime and a live action.
There was live action?
I think so.
Well, I know what I'm doing after this podcast.
She's a comic book character, though, from the same universe as another character. It doesn't matter. We can move on.
Try
anime.
This. Besides comic, speaking of comic book characters, Marvel Champions is teaching me about all these characters I had no idea existed, and Troy's like, this character's super important. How do you not know about him? And I feel real dumb. Anyways,
He picked
back
Magic
to it.
last time. Colossus's sister, who's now like an essential X-Man because she has
no
the
idea she
portal
existed.
ability. She can make
No.
magic portals.
I
And
don't know
he's
when
like,
she came into existence because I don't remember her in the old comics.
Colossus used to talk about his sister a lot, but yeah, she evolved and now she's in everything. There's not like
No
every
clue.
time they're like, we need to make a new X-Men team. We need let's do Beast, let's do Wolverine, let's do Jean Grey, we gotta have Magic, or how are we gonna get around? Like if we gotta pop to the other side of the world, we need Magic with her magic portals. So
She was in the Golden Sun one too. That game.
she is she's in everything. She was in the movie The New Mutants.
Yeah, first time I heard of her last night.
No
or the
one
night
even
before.
knows her. And she's Colossus' sister.
That I did not.
Spoiler warning for the Elusive Samurai and real life history, because I spent 20 minutes reading Wikipedia, so I consider myself an expert.
This is not a documentary.
I think
Sure
I
it
think
is.
I think
Why
spoiler
not?
warnings have expired for this history. 1300s.
All right. We meet a young 8-year-old prince. Okay, we need to settle one thing because I was very confused and I had to read this up. So in Japan, apparently, for a time, the emperor, despite the name and title, was not in charge. Basically, whoever had the army was in charge. And so the shogunate was running Japan, and they just let the emperor exist. Very similar to Britain, but much more meaner. Because the emperor wanted to be in charge, and the shogunate's like, no, I have all the armies. I'm just going to let you live so that we can say we have an emperor, but I'm in charge. Okay. Our main character is the son of the current shogunate, despite the emperor working with other people trying to take back power. This main character is Tokiyuki, again, a real life historical figure in that he was the shogunate's son and he fought against Takuji and his brother.
I thought Tokiyuki was the like food on a ball you can or on a stick that you can buy from street vendors.
Tokiyaki? Maybe?
Oh, that's Tokyo. Okay, my bad.
Yeah.
You mean deep fried octopus balls?
Is that what it is?
Oh, they're so good.
I need to try them.
Just don't think about what that squishes.
I like octopus.
Oh, good. Then you'll love Tokiyuki. Dude, I know they have them in Seattle. Just go to any sushi place. They're going to have it.
He made it to a pretty reasonable age. I thought he would have died a lot younger.
The fact he's 8 is insane. Your guys' thoughts on the anime character Tokiyuki?
Okay, so a couple caveats. If we were to put him in a box and go like his
escape, that's his whole thing.
right,
Yes.
his personality and his like abilities, if you will, are pretty neat. I think he's a decent character on paper. I like that he's super caring and kind. He's reluctant to take any sort of power, which is great for a leader. I love his style of I'm going to take my superpower of being elusive and running away and start comboing that with attack tactics. That was cool. I like that. You know, they talk about like backwards bow hunting or not hunting, but firing. His like dodge with the blade thing, that was super cool. They put him into all the problems that I mentioned earlier. So a lot of it ends up for me falling flat, and I stop caring about him, except for the moments. Okay, I will have to say, I did like all the moments where it's like high levels of danger, and everyone's like super concerned, and like there's bad stuff going on, and then it pans to his face, and he's just got this like glee of like, yes, I'm being chased. He's like a cat that's happy someone's chasing him. That was pretty neat. So he was an okay character.
Yeah. I didn't have much problem with him. He was entertaining. I thought it was pretty funny when he was the straight man to a lot of jokes, not just with the Shinto priest, but also with his friends. And like there was one scene where he was worried about what they were thinking about him because he was being forced to go do all these things, and they were interpreting it in the worst possible way and thought he was a pervert, and so he was freaking out. So some of that was pretty funny, but yeah, I actually don't have much problem with him. It's most of the other characters, so he's fine.
I agree that the concept of both this character and the anime was really cool, and the reason I picked it. Hey, in an age where people are wearing huge samurai armor and battling each other, this guy has figured out parkour and evasion tactics, and I thought that was really cool. And what I wanted was more battles, more one-on-one fights. I thought we were gonna get more shonen style, and it's in there a little bit, but not nearly what I was looking for. The fact he's 8 years old drives me insane, because they're like, he's 8, and I'm like, okay. And then like a few years pass. No, why? but because he's 8. Okay, so in this world, 8-year-olds just slaughter men. I can get behind that. That's the gimmick. I get it's not realistic at all, and I know that that's driving Jeremy crazy, and fair.
Yeah, I'm hating it.
but you know, at least I said, okay, you've established that, and I'll just move on.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a part where him and his companions, who are all the same age as him, go to a village, and they're like, we have to save the children. And I'm like, you are the children.
Yeah.
What are we doing? What is even this? Oh, now suddenly 4-year-olds are fine, whatever.
And you have like military reinforcements show up, and they're deferring to the 8-year-old, like, what should we do? Where should we go next? Who should we shoot at?
Again, I think the concept works. I think him as a character works. It's the rest of everything around him that's mostly failing in this anime.
Yeah.
I think Jason's
100%.
Jason's right on that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so again, we are back in feudal Japan. We see this young character running around, evading his archery lessons, basically using parkour, establishing kind of a skill set in this time of peace, and he runs into the bravest samurai retainer that his father has, and this guy's name is Takuji, and we're going to find out that he is the villain of the story, and probably a villain in history, I think, is what my interpretation of him is, that he's not looked upon fondly just because of all the betrayal he does. But again, we're talking about the fictional version, Takuji. What do you guys think?
He seems like he'd be pretty neat, but I don't know anything about him. Like, there's a couple scenes. The anime does a really good job of setting the danger aspect of this character, and he seems like he would be a compelling character, and he seems very charismatic, I guess. But like,
they do call it out.
We literally get like 5 minutes with this character total throughout the whole entire anime, and it's frustrating because he is compelling. There's a couple scenes that you called out, Troy, in our pre-show that, like, yeah, I want to know more about that. Why is that happening? Is he actually possessed? Because they do a few times in the anime start talking about like that old Japanese world demons and like monsters, and like some people are being possessed and that's why they act so evil. Unfortunately, some of the more fantastical points of this anime seem to be just illustrative, and they're not actually happening within the world.
That's a good point.
And that's frustrating because I think it would have been cooler if they weren't. Because and that's the thing. There's this line, because I don't know, because there's a moment where he starts seeing spirits, and that seems to be reality for them.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like, there's a moment where he's up in the air and he's got wings because he's elusive, but those wings aren't really there. That's just for illustration.
Mm-hmm.
But then they kill an actual demon hog.
Right.
So, like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what's really frustrating, is like I'm trying to ground myself and they won't let me. They keep pulling the rug out from underneath me.
So I can make an argument for I think that it is the dying of the fantasy, and they do kind of say that to some degree.
Mhm.
But like the Shinto priest, I don't remember his name.
Suwa.
That guy. I don't particularly like him either, but he does a lot of things that are just outright magical. Like there's a scene where he's walking away and arrows are raining down around him. He doesn't care. He clearly does see the future, and there's some weird stuff. This is one of those hints that I saw that made me think, okay, I don't know whether this is a play of breaking the fourth wall and tying into the outro, or if this is truly indicative of like this character's divine ability to see that far into the future. But it literally says producer and has an arrow pointing at him. Right. And then he's talking about things happening in our day. And so he's like, oh, the dogs that are being shot at with the blunt arrows.
Actually, a great joke, because I was like, wow, that's crazy that they're putting this in the story. That's
Yeah.
going to cause issues. And then him addressing it, I was like, oh, okay. That
Yeah.
works for me. That's funny.
Exactly. But the fact that they've tied that in, there's no ludonarrative dissonance with it. They've actually created, or not ludonarrative, because there's no game, but there's no dissonance between the story we're being told in the anime versus how the character is acting with like this fourth dimensional shift, like, or breaking the fourth wall. Like, how does he know that that's going on in the future? Well, he says he sees into the future. And then we also see, like you said, the boar. I believe that those creatures were actually there, and this girl that's her divine gift, is to let people see them or whatever. When he drank the stuff, he actually got the ability. One of the guys was literally talking with a mouth in his ear to another guy's eyeball, and they were talking back and forth. And another person even commented that was so creepy when the eyeball talked to me. So, like, I think there's enough hints, and he even does say, like, this is the last era where we'll have divine powers. So I think there are hints that,
I
like,
do remember him saying that.
Yeah, that these are real magical powers for them, and this kid's ability to run and hide and escape is also a divine ability. It's not just good reflexes or ability to, be nimble and do parkour and stuff. It's literally a touch of the divine in this story.
So what do you think about the bad guy then?
Wait.
I think the bad guy is definitely possessed.
Yeah, but what are your thoughts on him? Bring it back around.
I think he's an interesting character. At first he came across to me as just another silly, shallow villain, because it showed him and he like, oh yeah, I just barely moved my sword, and the guy's head gets like diced, Resident Evil diced, right? And then, oh, I destroyed everything, and then it shows him like standing in a fiery building with corpses all around him, and he's just laughing maniacally about how he's going to be the emperor. And I'm like, okay, so he's just a hollow, boring, evil to be evil, wants to have power and will kill anything to get that power kind of guy. But then as they started showing other scenes where he clearly has some kind of divine protection or something, because he's just walking around and just moving and people's heads are flying off, and his charm is otherworldly, and he doesn't even realize some of the things he's doing. And I got more and more interested in him. So I do agree he's a very intriguing character. And I want to see what's going to happen. Like that one scene where they drew him and he's like looking back and he's got like 7 or 8 eyeballs.
Eyes in his eyes.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
On Takuji, I think he's the most interesting part of the whole anime. I think he needed a lot more time, like Jason said. His scene with the Emperor's son was so good. It's just so good. Perfect villain of like, as he's slaughtering dozens of men, telling the prince, you need to trust me. Why aren't you trusting me? Like, what he's doing versus how he's talking and the detachment and how scary that makes him. Like he can walk up to you and genuinely be caring and kind while he's murdering you, and how scary that makes him as a villain. I really liked him.
Well, and the fact that like all of the other allies to those people that he just beheaded come running because he's so charming to see how
Right.
he's doing.
Right. Yeah. But it's also a great scene of, the Emperor's son clearly is like, guys, villain, and everyone's like, no, we love him. Fantastic. Yeah, it was great character. He is only in the show for about 5 minutes, but every time he was on the show, he stole everything. Yeah. All right. So yeah, we just meet him right now. He's a super friendly, nice guy who's off to go fight in war for the shogunate, and that definitely doesn't work out. We see Tokiyuki talking with his brother, and his brother's like, "Hey, you need to get serious. We need you to take over, ruling soon. Dad's basically just a shadow puppet for these people controlling him, and we need a real shogunate to take power. So quit." And Tokiyuki's like, "I'm 8 and I don't want to, and you're even older than me." He's like, "Yeah, but no, my mom's not like, my mom was a courtesan. It doesn't count." So Tokiyuki runs away like he always does, and he runs into a young girl and her father, but I'm guessing it's not really her father.
Don't think so. Yeah.
And this man is a very eccentric priest who will play a major role in the rest of the story. His name is Suwa, and I'm guessing he's going to be a big talking point here. So Jason, why don't you start us off with priest Suwa?
Tier list, he's an S tier hated character. For me, he may be a contender of worst character of 2024. He has some decent moments in more of the quiet, like, conversational scenes. His glowingness and the close-ups that they do and his just obnoxiousness makes me want to fast forward. I can't stand it when this character's on screen. He is like, his jokes are dumb, his antics are stupid. And we're talking about in a time period where his lands are being assaulted and his people are being killed. And here he is doing these antics, like digging holes where he knows someone's going to step so he can capture them. But oh yeah, that's right. Your maiden's getting shot in the ear by an arrow. Good job, dude. I can't stand this guy. He's irritating.
Yeah, I'm mostly there with you. He was abrasive. I don't like loud characters, and he was a loud character, loud and obnoxious. And he was also creepy. Like, I mean, he was trying to kiss the boy while he's asleep, and he's like, "Oh, it's just a wake up game." And I'm like, "Okay, come on, dude, don't be creepy." And there was just this sort of playfulness about him, like you're saying, in this environment where such serious things are happening and people are dying left and right. I get it when, like, he calls himself a god, and I don't know if he's just got an ego or if it's because he can see the future, and so, he thinks he can work his way out of any problems and actually do, but he does perform some crazy miracles almost, so I don't know. So he's a weird character. There are times when I did think he was funny, like when he lost his ability to see the future. I thought that was actually a really well done portrayal of how someone who relied so much on their foresight would behave if they lost it. Absolutely go nuts and want to protect everything, because if I can't tell what's going to happen, I'm not going to let anything happen. So that was pretty cool, but most of the time I didn't like him.
Yeah, I don't think he bothered me as much, but he's definitely one of the weakest elements of the show. With abrasive is the perfect word. He just, and this whole show does some, hey, let's do some sex jokes, and I'm like, yeah, but my name's to your cast is 8 years old.
Right.
That is a rough choice.
Yep.
his powers. Oh, there's one thing I do love. You guys probably hate it. The fact that you pull. I don't know if it's a pigtail
No,
or
I
just a
liked it.
flag off of his hat, but you can turn off his aura that's so bright it blinds you that it just works like a light switch. And they run that joke the entire anime constantly. It's in the ED. I like that joke. I thought that was a clever thing every time they click. But for the most part, yeah, he doesn't. He is probably what's going to make most people turn this anime off. I think.
I kind of thought that was some indication that he himself was from the future and that it was like a light bulb attached to the back of his hat or something. I'm really stuck on this future thing.
Well, yeah, no, and I mean, it literally calls out that he's the producer of the show. And then I tried to look that up. I was like, is he? Priest Suwa is a real person in history, not in modern times. I didn't see like the voice actor or the producer were the same person. I have no idea why he's called the producer. Or were they just saying he's the producer of that board game? But also, Tokiyuki recognizes that the board game is a board game that will be invented in the future. He literally points that out, like that board game is not historically accurate. And I kind of just took it as slapstick silly, and because if I tried to piece it into real lore, and this goes back to what Jason was saying, there is an element of fantastical that I think is portrayed as not real, whereas 99% of it is. And it is frustrating to be like, does the eyeball actually talk, or is this just being silly, wacky Looney Tunes about it? And it's hard to get definite answers. I mean, I definitely think there's something spiritual happening with Takuji. We see the demon ox. There's spirits in the forest. That definitely is fantastical elements. And he calls out, this is the end of the fantastical. This is the last in the era when those beliefs will die. Thus, in our story world, those beliefs are real right now. But I do think there's some elements that are just Looney Tune jokes.
Yeah, I could see it. But I don't know what they would be, like which ones. And
right.
To Jason's point, like it's, yeah.
I would be bothered if Bugs Bunny took Elmer Fudd's head. Like that would
right.
Right.
Combining
like,
slapstick.
Here they are doing
kind of
these
stuff.
antics, and like the gun is like turned and like black face, the soot on the face.
Soot.
And then all of a sudden he just comes around and like takes that's a little weird.
Yeah.
So to me, it would be like if you suddenly lore explain Bugs Bunny's powers, like he has the god of chaos Loki inside of him, so he has these powers. But you don't explain Roadrunner. Like, wait, how's Roadrunner doing his stuff? No, he's just a Roadrunner. It's just a joke. Why are you being serious? But why did you explain Bugs Bunny? Because no, that's real. That's serious lore. He's got the god of chaos inside of him. And Roadrunner, a joke. Why are you seeing so serious?
Yeah.
And then you have the graphic scene of Roadrunner being spitted and roasted on a fire.
Yes.
And Wile E. Coyote is like laughing maniacally, and it's highly detailed. It's a weird anime.
Roadrunner would never die. That's not even funny.
True story.
Slapstick.
My favorite Looney Tunes, bar none. Wile E. Coyote. There's my hot take. Best Looney Tune. Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner. All right. So yeah, he meets. Oh, we also need to talk about the daughter. So the daughter is a young priestess in Suwa's care. She has spiritual powers and is their first vassal to join Tokiyuki's new group.
Party.
Okay.
They keep calling it a party, and I hate that.
This is a me thing. Okay. It's always bugged me when you've got these medieval style stories where you've got somebody with a bloodline to a claim to some sort of authority or leadership. And then later down the road, they grow up and they then claim to be son of prince of the king, and I'm here to take leadership. How do you prove that?
Okay,
What
I will point out that part's real.
Yeah, I mean that has happened.
This is a real story about a guy
No,
who
I
ran out of his kingdom and then came back to claim the power of his dead father.
Yeah, but like,
so it happens realistically.
I don't know how those mechanics work, because it's like, do everyone go, oh, this guy we've never met that came up off the streets, he must have a legitimate claim. It could have been anybody.
Well, in Oblivion, you had the blades, and the blades tracked everything.
I mean, back then, you basically just were like, yeah, I'm that son. Will you serve me? And then when you have like 3 armies with you, the 4th army comes up and is like, well, that must be legit.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, if you have
in real
power,
life,
I mean,
you
have power.
So the priest Sua is also from the Sua province, which is going to get real confusing here in the story. But in real life, that province did back Tokiyuki, and then he was able to raise vassals and build up an army to reclaim the throne.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
It would usually require somebody who was trustworthy standing behind the claim.
And in this case, the priest Sua, again,
would be the trustworthy one.
Yeah, a real historical figure who was the leader of this province, saying, hey, yeah, guys, this is the prince Tokiyuki. We are going to follow him.
And the emperor's forces were continuing to look for him because they never found his body in the rubble. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
And for the most part, authority just came down to whoever had the most people fighting for them, is from what I got from this period of time.
Yeah, and to your point, Jason, the emperor was signing a bunch of imperial decrees and then had to stop because of the dishonesty of people claiming that they were doing things they never did. So, that's fair. As far as Shizuku goes, I'm really curious about her. She seems like I almost want to call her, I don't know what they'd be called. Maybe they were the geisha or the female shinobi, female ninjas or whatever, but the poisoners, right? Like the sneaky, well-trained ladies that had like the poison tea kettles and they had the extra chamber and you pour it a certain way and out comes the poison, right? She's that character in his retinue. And I like that. That's intriguing to me. It's a very complex, there's a potential for a very complex character. And I think they do a good job with her. Like they don't give too much information about her, but they give a lot of mysteries, and that's intriguing. But again, I have a really hard time with it because they're all 8. And I'm like, it's just another kid, right? I'm like envisioning what she will eventually be and how that's going to be interesting. But right now, like, who is this for? Like, I don't really care about this. So, yeah.
You have for Shizuku, geez, I forgot she existed a lot. And then suddenly she'd have a scene and be like, oh yeah, why are you in the story? And that's mean,
right?
But
she was there to though. She was there to shoot the guy with blow darts in the face that didn't do anything. I was like, those are poison, right?
Yeah,
those are poison.
Right? And she has the spiritual connection, right? So she's got, I can ring the bell and do stuff. It didn't really play out very much. Yeah,
she did a little bit of strategy stuff too at the very beginning with the boar. She was their strategist. I thought she'd continue to be the strategist until Dual Wielder Boy shows up.
Guys, I write the
Dual
names
Wielder all the skills
on the show notes.
Like maxed out, ultra powerful character.
We didn't do it on this podcast, but I recently watched the Apothecary Diaries, and bringing that up only because, while it's not based on real people, I don't believe any of those people are actually historical figures. It was very historical focused anime about China and the Imperial Gardens, where they kept all of the emperor's birthing people. Concubines, yeah, and all about the court drama of the concubines, of who wants to be the top concubine, all this stuff, and I can't have children now, I'm not going to get to be all that stuff. And it did a lot of comedy, but it never hurt its accuracy with history or any of that stuff to do the comedy. It all kept it within the context of that world. And this just poops on that so fast. It's like, no, screw it.
Yeah.
None of this matters, but even though it's important historical stuff, and pay attention because it matters to us. All right. After he meets them, he ends up running away again. Thinking about what the priest said about how he will be a hero by the time he's 10. 2 years. Oh, yeah. Then, so sorry for that harsh thing, little stutter there, but the anime just suddenly jumps to, and everyone's dead. And it's so fast. He's talking to his brother and like, where's the ball? And then suddenly a head falls on the ground and it shows Takeuchi doing all this stuff. And you're like, I got real bad story whiplash in this scene. It was so quick and so jarring.
This moment actually hooked me because it wasn't over the top silly except for the one scene with the priest. But besides that, it was fairly normal storytelling with a little bit on the silly side. And then the head falls, and I'm like, oh, we're in it. This is gonna get great. And I remembered the push off the cliff scene, and I'm like, okay, here we go. And here we are.
I think the biggest thing for me, again, I was having a hard time understanding the politics of the time because I thought Takeuchi was just going off to fight like a little rebellion, not literally the emperor coming back to reclaim his throne. And then suddenly switching. And again, we see the ball bouncing, a head falls, and then Tokiyuki's like, everyone's committed suicide, and I'm here alone. I'm like, wow, that escalated really quickly. It went from 0 to 100. The priest comes and had promised his father that he would take care of Tokiyuki. Steals him away. Tokiyuki's like, I should be, follow the samurai code. I should also be committing suicide. I should die. And then Sua pushes him off a cliff. I'm getting a little wild here.
Getting sound effects over here.
Yeah.
Our ring hit the table too.
Feeling it, man.
Sua pushes him off a cliff into a bunch of not bandits.
No,
marauders. Marauders a good word.
I think it's just the remains of the troops, like the bushi, the soldiers.
Yeah, it was literal army.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they start trying to kill him, and he starts dodging so much that they're killing each other. And there's this, it's just this beautiful scene of fluid animation to the point, and then he jumps back up and lands on top of the cliff, and is like, okay, I guess I do want to live. And Sua pointed out, when you're faced with death, you're at your most powerful because you are not just elusive, you're an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah.
And they're going to use that power to win. And that kind of establishes the theme of this anime about, the way of the samurai isn't going to win this war. It's time for something new. My biggest issue with this anime is then they also have the villains abandoning the way of the samurai. This entire anime is really about how the age of the samurai is ending. No, everyone's like, yeah, those rules they don't work. Mm-hmm. But because they have the hero doing it and the villains do it, it's almost like not really analyzing, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? It doesn't feel any certain way about the ways of the samurai. It's just simply stating, and they're gone.
Are they doing it the same way?
So Tokiyuki's whole thing, and in real life, is that he flees battles. That's not something samurai are supposed to do, right? He runs away and gets victory because of that. Whereas Takeuchi is betraying, his masters, who he's given up the code of honor to side with another group for his own rise to power. So different ways, but both breaking the samurai code and benefiting themselves, and historically rising up to a position of leadership over the country because of it. They both, you can say in history, they both end up winning. One wins a little more than the other.
Yeah. One doesn't get to keep his head.
No. Which makes me worried where this anime is going.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that was my biggest issue with like that's a really cool topic to discuss, but then they don't discuss it. They just kind of say it is. And that rubbed me the wrong way. All right. That is the end of the first episode. We got through that.
God, we're only done with episode 1.
The older brother, we'll go faster from here because
okay, good.
Stuff. The older brother is found by his uncle as he's being hunted down, but then the uncle betrays him. I kept waiting for them to find out he survived somehow because he's executed off screen apparently, and even though he's showing up in the ED.
They actually end up showing his execution. So
they do. Well, they do. Again, he's in the ED. Like, here's one of the main characters, the brother, who was
2 episodes.
Summarily executed.
Beaten first, too.
Toki, who gets frustrated with the priest. This is where the board game scene came in, and the producer. But, yeah. Sorry, I wrote Toki down because Tokiyuki's a long name. Right? Tokiyuki goes out to see if anyone is still serving him, and basically comes across some looters who are talking about how his brother was executed. Suwa shows up and lies to them about who Tokiyuki is, saving him, and they decide together they're going to get revenge on this uncle. And to do that, they bring in 2 new vassals, 8-year-olds, or maybe even 9, if they're lucky. And this is the characters Kojiro and Ayako, who I have put to talk about together because they're never separate ever. And
until the last episodes.
Yeah, I guess that is true. If they didn't have different genders, they would probably be the exact same character. So you guys' thoughts on Kojiro and Ayako?
What? They feel like set pieces. And when I say set pieces, I mean they literally like, hey, we need to fight a thing. Okay, we're gonna go fight the thing, and then there's no more character development. Like, the boy gets more character development, like in the last 2 episodes,
right?
But besides that, there is no arc. They're just like, I fight for you, and I can go toe to toe with adults and kill them.
Yes, I hate that. I hate that so much. So like the way that the boy is introduced as this is the best swordsman of his generation. And I'm like, oh, among 8-year-olds. Okay. Thank you for that. The clarification.
At least they address it sometimes of like, well, I'm 8, so I don't have the power to actually do this thing that I want to do, and I have to find a way around it. But only every once in a while, and they still are like fully blocking grown men's spears and sword swings.
Yep.
And their weapons are child size as well.
Yes.
So it's like,
yes.
Okay, in a sword fight, especially a sword that's made to be fast and is appropriately sized for a 5'8" individual is going to you're just not going to overcome that reach. You're just not.
Yeah.
As an 8-year-old,
let's try to focus on the actual characters and not the logistics.
I don't know.
8-year-olds
I didn't
in combat.
I hated the story beat. I hated that they were children that were his vassals, and I thought it was ridiculous every single fight scene, even though they looked pretty good.
Yeah, I'm right there with Jason. The boy was a little bit better than the girl just because of the end and how he's like, oh, I've got to be a general. I've got to think about this, and he was learning about, the benefits of working in a group with the other adults and having them deal with things that he couldn't, and then trying to create an opening, and then finally securing a kill because they held the guy down for him. Like he was interesting because more time was spent on him for that, and there was an objective there. For the girl, I have no idea what's going on there because she's like the powerhouse, right? Like she's the super strong 8-year-old. And so like that's gonna pass. And he even mentions that at some point I'm gonna need to protect you, right? Where she's probably not gonna be the strongest in the group at some point.
Is she a historical character?
I have no idea.
No, I could. Tokiyuki, Takagi, Suwa. Those are the only ones I could find. I think Sudamune also might be real, and they might be, but they're not well known enough to have gotten Wikipedia articles about them. So,
well, and the last thing I was gonna say is that he literally calls them Tokiyuki's arms and legs, and I think that's the whole purpose that they serve. They're literally just his limbs, because he's got to be focused on escape, but he still has to fight. So these two characters show up to be his left and his right arm.
This might be a generational thing, or like a old man yelling at the skies thing.
Oh, good. I can't wait for this.
We like this.
There's no other female fighters on any of the armies.
Right.
So why does it make sense that this little girl is going to be, this 8-year-old girl is going to not only go toe to toe with adult men, but then also be one of the most greatest generals ever? Yes. Not to disparage girls can't do what boys do, but we're talking about feudal Japan. That this is so immersion breaking. It's unbelievable.
You think that's more immersion breaking than them being 8?
Oh, no, absolutely. The 8-year-old definitely breaks it further. But it just makes it that extra more unbelievable, or not unbelievable, but like takes me out of wanting to care for these characters.
To me, this is the equivalent of like, oh my God, there's a dent in my car. Your car's also on fire. I know, but look at this dent.
I think it's a little more than that. And the reason I say that is because the anime went out of its way to guarantee that every soldier, every samurai was a dude. And so like there's no legacy of women present. There's no tradition that's being upheld. Like, why would she be trained? And why would she? Huh?
Because they're 8-year-olds.
Well, but that's the thing. An 8-year-old gets trained according to the tradition of the time. And if they establish that in the show as the tradition, that there are no women fighting, then it just is weird to see it. Like
it's just weird.
It's because of the way they've set up their story. They've clearly set a standard, and then they change it for just this one character. And so it seems weird.
To me, the part that's offensive about these characters is the lack of background. And they settle into the trope style, like, hey, we meet this guy. He gets a little bit of a background, a little bit of a development, and now he's on the team, and we go on to the next guy. Every other anime in the whole world does it. This feels super lazy to be like, we don't have time for that. Here's just 2 guys. They just showed up. They're good. Okay, but why did they show up? Because they did.
And my complaint would be 100% dismissed if they had done that for her. Like, hey, there's this small faction out in the countryside that, they had perhaps maybe too many girl to boy ratio, and they had to have some girl soldiers.
Like, hey, my father was this, and I was the only kid. Right. He's like,
something like that.
I'm training you because I want to.
Justify the difference.
I didn't bat an eye when, half the Demon Slayers and Demon Slayer were women. Like, because that was this thing that they established. But here it's like just throw it in for flavor, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the characters later, I think it's Genba, says, hey, without the girls around, it's just not as sexy. And I was like, okay, number one,
you're 8.
You're 8.
Yeah, please don't say that about 8-year-olds.
Number 2, is that the reason the girls were there? Like, why she's the spear wielding powerhouse of an 8-year-old, that they happen to make her girls because they needed that balance? I don't know. I'm just saying, like, the anime calls things out sometimes, and that seemed like a call out.
Anyways, I'll shake my fist at Clouds more off screen.
All right. We check in on the uncle, who's suddenly super poor, and no one believed him that he caught his own nephew, and he's also a gambling addict. So he gets kind of possessed by a demon, but maybe not.
And the nephew was just a concubine's child, so not much value.
Right. Yeah. So he didn't. So he's all super focused on catching Tokiyuki, which is great because Tokiyuki wants to catch him. So they lead him into a trap, and they fight him, and he, beats them up like they're 8-year-old children until Suwa points out, hey, use your special evasion powers, and he does. And then they're able to combo their attacks with the evasion, and eventually they get his head and chop it off.
This I was fairly on board with because I liked the lesson that was being like developed here. Is that you've got these two bodyguards that are so concerned with protecting Takayuki, and when they finally realize, oh, Takayuki isn't in danger because Takayuki's so good at this, we don't actually have to worry about him.
He's got
It was a great dynamic. And then they just throw that out the window for like the next battles. It's like you took the trouble of doing a track down story arc and battle story arc, and then you were just like, okay, moving on.
I don't know. I thought they continued to use it. Like I don't remember them trying to defend
with the boar, but then beyond that, he's always in the back or he's always doing something else. They never make a call back to it again.
Oh, like just having that combo where they.
It was a powerful combo.
He's doing that. It is a powerful combo. That's true. That is true.
And that would make the kid angle more believable, because if you've got an adult focus 100% on one thing that he can't hit, and here comes some blades from behind, that's 100% like immersive. Like I'm in, right?
Yeah, it's like later they use an ambush tactic to take out a very strong fighter. There's like 4 guys that wade through a bunch of defenders and don't have any problem with it at all. But, these 2 kids jump in behind him and kill him. And that was completely believable. So, yeah, I'm again, I'm right there with you, Jason.
I mean, I'm not disagreeing. Don't leave me out of the party.
You and me, Jason.
What do you think, Troy?
We know what it's about.
You guys are treating me like I'm pumping up this anime. I know I picked it, but
I'm not complaining about what you said. I'm just complaining about the story beats and what I think could have made the anime better. That's really what I'm trying to get at, which I'm not portraying very well.
So the character Suwa takes them to the Suwa region, and they get there, and Tokiyuki is evading his lessons. He doesn't want to train or learn, and he gets super frustrated because the priest is so weird. And then Suwa confronts him during this giant rainstorm, and it's like, hey, don't worry, because I'm a god. And he literally stops the rain, and then all the people of the region, village, whatever, a bunch of people show up off this cliff and are like, what do they say? Hip hip hooray. They say literally hip hip hooray. And so it was like, see, we got this. I'm gonna give you an army, we're gonna win. And then the people are like, oh, we're tired, we're going home. He's like, yeah, it's hard to keep it that exciting that long.
This upset me.
What part?
You got a man god controlling the weather. Do you understand how powerful that is in a medieval setting?
Oh, heck yeah.
Why is he afraid of any army? Why isn't he in control of the entire province at this point? Why hasn't he just wiped out single-handedly wiped out the emperor's forces? This is infuriating. Oh God. Ugh.
God works in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
No, I
didn't like that they gave him this power. I didn't like it.
Well, and he has other powers. Like there's another one where he puts his hand on the lake and he's like, boom, and there's all of a sudden a bunch of ice shoots up in a line in front of him. And then where he's walking around and arrows are going around behind him and he doesn't care, like he's impervious to them.
Do you know who one of the most scariest X-Men is? Storm. You know why?
Yeah.
Because Storm can annihilate countries.
Yep.
She is so powerful, and you've got a character now that can control the weather. I didn't like it.
Yep.
I don't like that.
What do you think?
I don't like that complaint. It's not that you're wrong. I feel it's very limiting to be like, hey, you should have done A, B, and C because I wanted you to. And I think history shows sometimes A, B, and C just doesn't happen sometimes. It's just people don't always make the super rational, easy choice that they could make. There's probably a reason he's waiting.
As your job as the storyteller is to give me a compelling reason why he wouldn't do that. And there's
some
lots of
reason-
different examples you could use. Maybe his powers are limited to his Suo region. Maybe his powers can only be used once a year. Maybe his powers are, maybe he's a benevolent god and he doesn't like killing. Like, give me something. Don't make me guess.
He's an enigma, Jason.
Wrapped in a mystery.
Yes. Perhaps even a paradox.
I mean, what about it? Just would be boring. Like if he just won because he had weather control.
Well,
very boring.
Then you gave the character too much power.
And that's my point. Don't give him
Yeah.
his power.
Yeah.
There were other ways to try and convince this kid that he was a god besides weather powers. That's my point.
Okay. Feels
I
limited.
didn't like it. It's okay.
They have-
That's my point. It's unlimited.
Man, you really love Wicked. Sorry. The joke. Movie's coming out, so it's fine. They go hunting for a demon ox who definitely doesn't look like an ox, but they definitely called it an ox, so they had to scribble out pig, boar, and
Hog.
bright ox.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
but it's an ox. They kill it with elusiveness. They trick it into falling on sharp rocks.
Which this was the one time that like Shizuku actually contributed to anything, really.
Plan.
Yeah. By providing that plan. After this, she really does take that backseat role.
And then they name their group the Elusive Warriors. This is where they get their name. Oh, there's a great Spirit Bomb reference somewhere in here with Suo where he does this. Give me your
Great?
energy.
I wouldn't call it great, but it was humorous.
He even had Goku hair, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Yes, he did.
That's
Which made me
right.
roll my eyes.
Yep.
What is funny, Jason?
What is
What
comedy?
is art?
All right, we come back to Takauji. He's offered like land and stuff. He's like, no. Just let my retainers join the royal court. And the emperor's like, yeah, that's cool.
Emperor's like, I'm an idiot, sure.
I mean, that probably is real. That one probably is a real thing.
Probably is, but I mean, come on, if somebody just betrayed their previous lord to serve you, no.
So-
you can't trust them that quick.
So the Takauji is actually, he's much more known than Tokiyuki, because he does overthrow the emperor. He installs his son as the new emperor. The prince that is like, don't trust him. He becomes the emperor while Takauji gets to become the shogunate and rule Japan. And the old emperor they let live, but he sends them the royal crown or jewels or whatever to show who the emperor is, but he sends fake ones, and he flees to the south and is like, actually, I'm still the emperor in the south. And then Japan gets split in half as there's suddenly two emperors, but really Takauji's in charge of
Everything.
everything until Tokiyuki shows up for just like a little bit.
Just to like
For a
flee to the
split
south and get his
second.
head chopped off.
Yeah, which is really weird. Tokiyuki ends up siding with the emperor, and in real life history, where this anime is going doesn't make sense. They're like building Tokiyuki up, and I'm like, he's gonna lose though.
It's like Paul Revere sides with the British and then dies.
Yeah.
All right. All right, yeah. So he sends a character named Pseudo Mune to become the governor of the land Tokiyuki used to have, and that would put the Suwa province underneath him. Now that he's the governor, but he's really there to kill the rest of the Hojo clan, Tokiyuki's clan, hunt down anyone who's left, which is at this point Tokiyuki. This guy has a magic eyeball that can see everything except
Two
in
of
the
them.
dark because he's old, and they bulge and they speak.
Yep.
And he travels to Suwa and tells them, hey, I'm taking control. And he shoots one of the maidens in the ear just to show how good he is. And Suwa's like, this is perfect because Tokiyuki sucks at fighting, but he's pretty good at archery. So we're going to have him train under Sudamune in disguise by playing hide and seek, which they don't really do at all. So the way they do this is they set up a tournament of archery where you ride on a horse and you shoot dogs with like punching bag arrows, not pointy arrows. You just and they do make the joke.
Beanbag arrows.
They make the joke that in that time this was considered completely fine, nothing bad at all. But Sue was super worried about how modern audiences are going to react as the main character starts shooting dogs.
Yeah.
Sudamune joins this tournament, and then they make a bet. Like he's like, "Hey, what if we gamble? Have one of my guys go against you in this tournament that you're so good at, and if you win, you get to search wherever you want for the Hojo clan, and if we win, you have to leave." And then he puts Tokiyuki in the tournament. Now, apparently pictures aren't a thing back then, so no one knows what Tokiyuki looks like. And Sudamune is like, "Oh, that's just some random kid I'm gonna fight." And they have this big shootout, and everything is in CG, and it looks terrible. Like, we had seen people get on horses and switch to whenever someone gets on the horse, it's this janky CG. And I was like, oh, that's rough. But, at least we're not going to have a giant multi-episode sequence on horseback instead of that super awesome Sakuga evasion stuff we saw in the beginning. I was like, oh, no, this is a train wreck.
This is not working out.
Yep.
Tokiyuki wins because he figures out he can shoot backwards.
And we learned about blind spots. So if you're learning how to drive.
Yep. Check your blind, spin around with your elusiveness and check your blind spots.
Yep.
Then we meet the character Genba. This is a bratty ninja kid who heckles people in the area, but he does anything for money. He's like, I only care about money. Except for you, Lord. Now I have faith in something. What do you guys think of Genba?
He started off kind of interesting, and then there's the scene that just kind of zooms in on his crotch as there's a star spinning around to cover his junk, and it just turned me off of him. I couldn't like I thought his episode of breaking into the compound and using his ninja tricks was sweet. It's probably one of the better episodes. Again, the whole mask can transform him into literally anyone else.
It's clay. It's clay that he can shape.
Living clay.
It bugged me for similar reasons of the weather control, but then it also bugged me because do we have fantastical elements or don't we? And then how can I tell the fantastical elements from the illustrative? Because you're not doing a good job letting me know which is which.
I mean, this one is clearly literal. He clearly turns into.
Well, obviously, people. And I hate it. It's because he's got the cat ears and it gives him away every time, and people are dumb. So
I did like his justification. He's like, because it makes me cute. Do you think?
Okay, that was pretty good. That was pretty good. I did like that one. But then, like, they just use him for MacGuffin stuff later on. Like, I was really hoping they were going to do more, like, cloak and shadow kind of, cloak and dagger kind of stuff with him. And if they're in trouble, oh, here comes some smoke bombs. They get away. Yay. Thanks, Genba. It was like, okay, good, great. Thanks for the one episode.
Yeah, I would have even liked it if they did more smoke bombs, but they didn't really use him much for that. He was just kind of like, hey, we're going to need some horses to escape, or we're going to need some reinforcements to, reinforce us. And so Genba's just off screen. And then when it's time for the reinforcements to show up, they're like, oh, Genba brought the reinforcements. Yeah.
Again, this is another point that makes it feel like this is just a prelude season. and it's just off-putting.
Yeah. Yep. He's of the characters, I kind of found him to be a little bit more annoying than he necessarily had to be, but obviously that was his shtick. And it was how they tried to define him. But again, being 8 years old and getting drunk, and I don't know, it's just maybe it's a cultural thing. It was just so off-putting. It was so off-putting. Now, I did think it was kind of funny when they made the joke of like, boy, I hope he doesn't like ride his horse by a voluptuous woman, and he'll have a nosebleed and die. And I was like, okay, that one's kind of funny. And then they actually followed through with the joke twice. So I don't know. Sometimes he landed, sometimes he didn't for me.
I'll say it says a lot about the anime that this like one line of dialogue backstory that this character has is still some of the more deep characters in this anime.
Yes.
Yeah, in any other anime, I'm like, this guy sucks. In this anime, I'm like, yeah, he's a standout.
Yep.
His powers.
Don't do anything unless it's for money.
Right. and so, of course, he's going to be like, oh, I care about something more than money. Finally, I've learned my lesson. But I'm still the same character for the joke. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, super predictable everything that happened with them, but at least there was some backstory. He's a notch up from Kojiro and Ayako.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's kind of where we are. I was struggling at this point. Anyway, they go on a mission. So Tsunemune had returned with an imperial decree that he gets half of Suwa land. So the reason they hire Genba is to steal that decree, which will stall the takeover. They do it, and we are I was like, okay, that gives them a good chance to confront Tsunemune. The plot has brought them together, and they're like, no, what about Ear Guy?
Yeah.
Huh? Ear Guy suddenly shows up.
Mouse ear guy.
Yeah, with ears in his mouth, and then he teams up with Tsunemune, who's Eye Guy. So I have Eye and Ear Guy, and they're flirting.
Yeah,
cool.
And he's like crawling all over him, like creepy. Yes.
Okay. Great for them. I wonder if there's historical relevance there. But that ended up being nothing. They just Genba is like, oh, we got caught. I'm sneaking away. Oh, Tokiyuki saved me. Now I'm going to go out of my way to save him. I've learned my lesson. I have a character arc completed in about half an episode.
Immediately. Yeah.
And they win. They get the imperial decree. Everyone gets away, and then the emperor is like, hey, I take back all my decrees because I'm not sure who's telling the truth anymore. So just stop it.
Yep.
And they didn't even actually steal the decree. They just burned it.
That's right. Yep. Yep.
Then we get that scene with the Takuji and the Emperor's son, where the Emperor's son basically is attacking him. Like Jeremy had said, the Emperor's being an idiot. The son's like, oh my god, I can't believe we're doing this stupid thing. And yeah, Takuji, he's just literally walking past people and their heads are popping off while he's like, why aren't you trusting me? I'm your friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then finding out in real life, this is the guy he installs as the Emperor. I thought was like, oh man, there's some twist coming. Again, this character is super interesting. On to the other story.
And you know what's funny is that they tell you at the beginning of the show, they're like, yeah, sometimes there's heroes and they accomplish a lot and they're talked about all throughout history. That's not who this anime is about. And it was clearly talking about Takauji, like that was the hero, the protagonist.
Oh, I think you mean Tokiyuki.
No, because it said we're not going to talk about that one. We're going to talk about this one instead.
But Tokiyuki's in real history is like just a footnote in history of like, hey, he did this one thing one time.
That's what I'm saying. Takauji was the hero it was talking about that we're not going to talk about. We're actually going to follow Tokiyuki, the footnote.
One thing I'd love.
He ends up emperor?
Yeah, he wins.
More or
Okay,
less. He ends up shogunate.
He's the shogunate, yeah, which is above emperor.
So
It's
Paul
like a
Revere
military
versus evil George Washington, who George Washington kills everyone around him, but then ends up president. Is this what we're doing?
Yeah,
Right. And yeah, and then
Okay.
he rules for a while, and then someone else comes and eventually takes his head. That's from what I could tell, at this point in history, this was the thing.
Oh,
Like-
I see. So it's just the Sith Empire.
Right.
Yes,
Or it was
yes.
very Game of Thrones. It was like, hey, I'm the shogunate now. Okay, I betrayed you. I'm the shogunate now. And the emperor's like, can I be in charge? And everyone's like, no.
Shut up.
you don't have an army.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I was trying to find out is Takauji considered heroic or villainous in a historical view from Japan's point of view? It seemed like villainous just because of the betrayal is how it comes down. But like, I think also his leadership went well and the country did fine under him. But it's hard to like, again, it's like 10 minutes of Wikipedia research I did here. And the article didn't have a ton about him. I literally found an article like, was he villainous? And it still wasn't super clear. So I don't know. I'd love to know if someone knows Japanese history.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was my thought, Jason, when I was thinking of the Paul Revere thing. Is like, is this supposed to be like George Washington if he was possessed by demons? And we're looking at this from like King George's son is trying to, which would be interesting for us. But
Right.
if you didn't have any of the historical context, all of this done in a silly way and stuff, again, I think that's where it
And
falls.
Thomas Edison can see the future.
Different time period.
Oh,
Still, he comes back.
Yeah, Thomas Edison, George Washington
from the future.
We're hanging out at Chuck E. Cheese.
I love it.
Okay.
I want to see Drifters. I want to see more of Drifters.
Yeah, they never made a season 2, did they?
No, they did like a few more episodes after the first season, but nothing past that.
Bummer. Okay, winter comes and Suwa loses his power, as we had mentioned earlier. And also Sadamune hires a former bandit to help him take over Suwa territory. And this guy's like, okay, I'll just do this bandit style. And this guy's name is Shokan. He has ants on him.
Yeah.
Never explained.
Yep.
Mhm.
The Suwa clan is like, we need to scout out what's going on out there. And the Elusive warrior is like, we'll go. And then Suwa's like, no, you should not go. And he can't tell anyone his powers aren't working. So he's just like, hey, I just feel like you shouldn't go. And they're like, well, we'll be fine. You would tell us if something was wrong. And he's like, take extra coats, take extra rice, slow down, don't leave.
He's
they-
like hiding underneath the wagon, staring at them. There were some funny moments here.
Yeah, these bits did work. It honestly would have worked a lot better if everything he'd done in the past hadn't existed. But
Yeah.
because like as a
Actually-
concerned father, he's very funny. When he's being creepy and weird, he's not.
Right.
The best part of this was watching Gemba underneath. Like, he's the only one that's staying behind because he's grabbing the rolls of money.
Money that he left you.
Mhm.
While they're scouting, they're suddenly attacked by 9.5-year-old kid who dual wields and is too fast for everyone to beat.
Early teen, but yes.
Tokiyuki also realizes in this moment that all the training he's been doing, and he's like, oh, I've been getting almost as good as Kajiro. And he's like, oh, no, they have not been trying with me. They've just been letting me think I was good, and they're actually much better than me. Anyway, this guy recognizes Shizuku and is like, oh, yeah, that's a girl who gave me food once. You guys are actually good guys. And this guy's name is Fubuki. So your guys' thoughts on Fubuki?
But his contribution was interesting, and unfortunately we don't get much backstory of him besides, oh, I was passing by and I helped these kids because all of the parents were murdered. And so then I proceed to murder multiple bandit raids.
By myself.
Well,
Three
in
waves.
traps.
With traps.
With
He had traps, but then he killed off himself, whoever survived the traps. Because it sounded like
Right.
he actually fought too.
Yeah, he's He's all right. I have all the same complaints as the other kids, but besides that point, he's all right.
He's too much for me.
Yeah.
He's too much. He has all the skills. Like he's an amazing swordsman. He's an amazing strategist. He's an amazing teacher. He's also
but he's
wise.
always hungry.
And he's always
that counters it, right?
Yeah, right. That's like his one negative trait. He's too much for me. He's borderline Mary Sue, because of just nothing is really going to challenge him. Like the thing that challenged him was being so hungry that he passed out. That's what got in his way. In everything else, even when he fought the guy where it looked like, oh, he's taking a couple of wounds, maybe he's actually outclassed. No, he's not outclassed at all. No, he could dispatch this guy anytime he wants. And when he finally does, it's so casual that you're like, okay, nothing's challenging this kid. He's amazing. Now they are throwing some hints in there, like the way that he spins his sword is the same way that guy spins his sword. And he was clearly looking for something like, who trained you? So I'm sure that there's some complex and extensive history for this character and explanation for how he's so amazing at everything. But I just find him irritating right now because he's
it's
just
in a
sort
different
of
anime.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it won't be talked about here. Because he's just a solution for everything from this point on. He's just great at everything.
I think it would have been cool if he wasn't a great fighter, but he was a great strategist because he did fill that strategic role in quite a few. And actually, they were interesting. They told it well, the strategy portions. I was into it. I liked where he was going and his reasoning for why they were going to set up certain traps where they needed to position troops because they were undermanned compared to the oncoming force. Neat stuff. But You're right. Then he could do all the other things as well. If he was like not confined to the back, but like maybe he was on a defensive wall or he was continually controlling the battle throughout the battle, I think that would have made him a better character.
Yeah.
And also other problem with him and all the other characters have no backstory. I know nothing about this character besides what's presently given. And it makes me not invested.
Yeah.
For the power level, I guess my assumption was they're setting him up to be so strong so that when a future enemy beats him, it sets the bar. That's what the impression I got. You see that done in shonen every once in a while, like, oh, I'm the best, and then he gets beaten by someone, and then the main character has to rise up and beat that character, and it lets you know how tough that enemy was.
Season 2, the Emperor is going to make a unit of kids that will then be able to overcome.
Oh my God. That is so bad that it's probably true.
For the character, though, at this point, I'd gotten burnt every time they introduced a character. I just didn't really bother to care. Yeah, he's interesting that he's the planner, and his thing is that he likes food, and again, there's no backstory. There's just nothing really to sink my teeth into, and I'm not taking the time to care if they're not taking the time to care.
Also, do you understand how hard Florentine is? Like, to wield 2 weapons ambidextrously with that kind of proficiency is not just years of training, but I mean, you're talking. Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry.
I've gotten pretty good in Beat Saber. I mean, I'm sure it translates.
Yeah,
you lose your arms so fast. You're like chopping your own hands off.
Am I complaining about the dent again, Troy?
Yeah, just a little bit. There's a show about 8-year-olds who are taking out armies, but how dare this guy be able to dual wield?
No,
by immersion.
It's just that cherry on top of just more pulling me out of the story.
That's I get it, but I get that. I just don't see how, like, at this point you're in the story. And
I'm not
in it.
Dual wielding 10-year-olds. Like, yeah, at this point I deal with 10-year-old. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Come on.
You've trained me through this podcast,
I
you've
understood that.
trained me to attempt to give ideas or solutions to some of these story beats in these anime that we don't like to try and make them better. And so I'm trying to, yes, the dual wielding bugs me. However, I'm trying to provide solutions to how we could have made this more compelling with 8-year-olds. It's a tough task.
The moment you say with 8-year-olds, it's just a really tough task.
The craziest thing about that is it's 100% a choice. Because again, the real life character Tokiyuki was not 8 years old when he fought to take back the capital. He was a full grown samurai man.
Which is why I say, like, who is this for?
Yeah. Well,
You know?
who loved Paul Revere?
Yeah.
All right. They have to defend this. They have to save the children. Okay, these innocent small children. That broke me a little bit. Like I said, I checked out, but then they're like, "Oh, this village of children." I'm like, "What are they? 1? Like, what's a child to you? You're 8 years old." And you're like, "Oh no, we can't leave these children to die." You're 8. You are the children left to die. Run. But again, they made this choice. I'm guessing these are 4-year-olds who can pull bows. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Don't be Jason. Don't be Jeremy. Right. All right.
Look at this dent. Look at the dent.
Look at the dent. So hot, it's burning my hand. But look at the dent. Bad guys show up. Brilliant strategies are working. Frozen lake, pitfalls, flanking maneuvers, all that stuff's working. Except for there's a couple of really good guys who just walk right through it. Like it doesn't matter, including the main bad guy. Everyone, they do the shonen thing. Everyone gets their own individual fights. Kojiro and Ayako fight a guy who has a spear, and they win. It's crazy. Fubuki fights a guy who uses a sword. Fubuki wins. Genba, he left to go get reinforcements. Tokiyuki get on purpose. This is the part of the plan. They lock him in a little building, little house, with the main bad guy. I already said his name. Shoken, the ant guy. Yeah, and
not Ant-Man.
Fubuki had taught him the Demon Hunt Buddha Blade.
Does it matter?
Demon Hand?
No. Actually, so I'm gonna be.
I thought it was Demon Hand.
No, it was Demon Blade. In the dub, it was Demon Blade. I'm gonna be honest. This move, not only the way it was animated, but also the idea that a lesser or a weaker opponent could take advantage of this due to their speed and elusiveness, was a really cool idea, and it was executed well. I actually enjoyed this particular part.
This is probably the best moment in the anime. This is a great fight. The only thing I wish is that he had kept cutting him, because he cuts him once on the wrist, and then just runs around him for like an hour.
Like 20 minutes. Yeah, an hour.
Yeah, it would have been cooler if it was like Death by 1,000 Cuts.
Right.
He had that option.
I thought that's what they were going for. I thought that's what was going to happen, and no, just the one cut. And then the guy's like, "Oh, it's too much, I die." And then 5 minutes later, he's on a stretcher. They're like, "Yeah, we got you. We just wrapped up your wrist. You're fine."
Yep.
But Tokiyuki wins with his elusiveness and his. Apparently, if you pull a blade while you're cutting, it cuts even better.
It does. That's true.
It is true. Yeah, I know that. I cut food.
yeah, there you go.
With a sword?
Sometimes.
So really big. Have you seen some of those chef knives? Dude, they're huge.
I audibly groaned in the scene where Fubuki's like, "I'm looking for a lord to serve."
Yeah, I know.
I was like, so
thing.
lazy.
Yeah.
he joins the team. Turns out Tokiyuki's a lord.
Woo.
I'm not.
Hold on, what?
I don't need this.
I know,
right? The next episode, or the last story, there's this army that's being attacked, and they want to die
Okay, that was
in
probably the best part.
suicide. And so Tokiyuki is sent by Suwa to go. He's like, hey, Elusive works great for you, but can you help an entire army retreat? Except for this army doesn't want to retreat. They want to die in battle. So his whole thing is you have to go there, convince them to retreat, and then get them out. The first day, they just help with the battle as much as they can. Then he gets in an argument with the guy and eventually convinces him to retreat. Kojiro gets a great scene during the final battle where he's fighting a guy on horseback and losing, but didn't spot enough time that all the other soldiers could then run up and hold the guy down so he can kill him. Even though he just said, I don't have enough strength to swing my sword again.
Yep.
but it's fine. It's fine. Fubuki scares the general, who's this like tax collecting jerk in face paint that's terrible at leading armies. The ear guy is there helping him. He's guarding him.
Okay, I did
he's
think
like,
that was
this
funny
guy's
because
terrible.
yeah, because basically his commander Sudamune, yeah, it was sent him to guard the guy because he didn't want to deal with him. Yeah. That was pretty good.
And they just keep retreating the army. A lot of fights happen. Does anything really stand out to you guys here that is important or character defining? They teach other people to shoot on horseback backwards.
Well, one thing that's notable is the hot dog man. I don't understand some of the decisions.
Rectangle face guy with circles on the head.
Yeah. Mostly bald guy with some hair.
Oh, that's right. That's hot dog guy. You had the face of a demon. All right.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a bunch of like weird characters in this army that don't matter. They get away. They do it. They pull it off. It's
power of friendship.
3 episodes. An 8-year-old gets drunk at one point
by having alcohol splashed on
his face.
Yeah.
Sure, that's not how that works, but you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, in real life history, Tokiyuki ends up losing. So again, why I don't know. At this point, watching it, I knew that, and I'm like, I am so confused what we're doing here anymore. You've lost me in the storytelling, and now I know the end game in real life history. When I went and saw Titanic, and I knew Titanic sank, I went there to see the sinking, but this is not that. This is the story of a young kid who used his powers to seize the day and win. And I'm like, no, he wins for like a little bit, then it goes real bad for him. That's it. I'm done. I don't know. Let's go to final reviews. Jason, you go first.
It's such an odd anime. Again, the animation studio did a phenomenal job. I mean, except for the CGI. CGI was terrible. But like a lot of the fight scenes were decent. There were a couple great, like, beautiful scenes to watch. But man, this is such a jarring watch that made me not want to look. It's a 2.
It didn't bother me quite as much. It's definitely not an anime that I'm going to ever come back and watch again, but it's for the most part mediocre. It's a very, very low 3, just not quite a 2 yet.
I'm going with a 1.
That's rare.
I really disliked it. And maybe it's because I did go in hyped for it. I was really excited for what I saw, and it just kept disappointing me. And I kept being like, "No, hang in there. You're just not getting it, Troy." And then I'm like, "Oh, I am not getting it. This is clearly like making a joke, a reference here that's all based on something, and that's not there for me, so it's falling so bad. But also the characters have no background. Like that's not even anime issues. That's all the way back to the original story problems. The CGI horses, man. And then you base an entire sequence on it. Oh my goodness. Every time they jumped on a horseback, I was like, oh my God, it's a 1980s MTV music video. Or it's a reboot. It was so janky.
Yes, so much.
I can't recommend it. Again, a lot of it is my disappointment in what I was hoping was going to be a great story. I hope that for Japanese audiences this lands better, and I think it would. But that's about all I got. All right, our next anime is The Witch and the Beast. If you have thoughts on the Elusive Samurai, please feel free to share them with our Twitter account at Baka Podcast or our website, the animebakaclub.com. Hit the contact us button, or wherever you found this podcast, whether it be YouTube or Spotify, Apple Podcasts.
Just make sure to give us a good review.
Maybe you went straight to archive.org.
Archive.org is running now again. Since you're hearing us, archive.org is working. Sorry for the big delay, but of course that happened a couple episodes ago for you guys, but it's wrapping up for us here in the present. All right. I think it's time for us to say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
Dodge!
Sayonara.